God, God bless that woman. She's just amazing. And her willingness to share what she shared with us, I didn't see coming.
Dawn, thank you so much. I really appreciate the chance to chat with you. This is wonderful.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm pleased to be here.
Absolutely. Minnesota Mean is such a fun ride. I really enjoyed the journey. Um, what was it that brought you in? Why the Mean?
Why the mean? Well, first of all, it's just a good name, but no. As somebody who lives in Minnesota and it has been Minnesota nice for so long, it's nice to embrace the other side, um, but and actually acknowledge that it exists. But that's a whole other story. No, I was inspired by a friend, Lisa, who joined the Minnesota Roller Derby when she turned 40 and was amazed that she would join such a what I thought violent sport at the time. And like, you're going to get yourself hurt. This is crazy. And she did get herself hurt, but it was okay because she had a community that embraced her and took care of her. And I was like, man, I don't know, maybe it's worth it to get injured um, with all these wonderful people you get to meet. And so, as a filmmaker as well, it's like this world is full of action and excitement and ups and downs, and so it's the perfect place to just camp out for a year and see what happens. And derby players are people who live large, and so I knew there would be good stories regardless of who I followed, and was pleased with the outcome.
You know, I think you should be because this is a really wonderful story, and I love how you balance it between the in-ring action. In rink, it's a rink. Yes.
uh, Track, but yeah,
Track.
sure, I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
On the track.
flat track, yeah.
But also off. Like these there we find out about the lives of these women. And it really is amazing. Spending a year with them as you did, what surprised you most about them?
Um, I think how incredibly dedicated they are to each other and anybody in their world. I mean, by the end of that season, I felt fully embraced by the team. I felt like an honorary member of the team without having to hurt myself,
Mm.
which is great. I think that there's that balance between being tough and being vulnerable that I love about Derby. That in order to be vulnerable, you have to be tough. In order to own who you are, you need to be strong enough to live with the consequences of who you are in some ways. And they're willing to do that. And I think that as a person, I feel like I live bigger now, than I did prior to Derby. I take up more space. I don't apologize as much for being in the way, which is something that women, I think, are tend to do, culturally told to do, is to be small. And so now it's like, no, no, this is my space, taking it up.
Well, and you know what? In this film, you can see how empowered they feel. Like these women are talking about this as a really life-changing thing. It's not just, hey, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. It's
Right.
changing them.
Mhm.
And one of the things I think is interesting at the end of the film, I think it's in the final match.
Mhm.
There's a banner around the ring that says roller derby can change the world.
Yep.
And I was wondering how you feel about that and what the players would say about that.
I would say that players would agree, that everybody's got a story how a derby changed their life.
Mm.
Like, and stop. That is part of derby. And I think it's, being in this community of powerful women. We're not always accustomed to that. We're accustomed to kind of infighting and that kind of thing. And this is not that. This is a very supportive community. So and I think that Derby absolutely changed my life. It changed my family's life. My daughter now plays Derby. She's 11.
Wow.
And she found out there was a youth league when we were premiering this film. And she's like, what? And I was like, well, yeah. As a mom, I got a little nervous because I was like, I'm not prepared for you to injure yourself. Um, but yeah, I think that it's life changing on so many levels. And part of it is that culture. It's that being able to live in a way that you might have not been encouraged to do so when you were younger.
You know, and we see that in some of these women, as they're playing and as they're talking, as they're engaging with you in the camera. And I think it's I forgive me, I don't remember her real name, but I know her character, her in match name is Smokahontas.
Yes.
It talks about repping her community,
Yeah.
and she thinks that maybe it's time for her, at as the film goes on, to rep her community in a different way. And I was wondering, um, from what you've seen, how does their experience in Derby give them the opportunities to do that, to represent their communities?
Well, I think particularly with Smokeahanis, Amy, who she now goes by Amy, but yeah, I mean, and to be fair, in Derby, most of the players don't know each other's given names. They talk about each other with Derby names. So yeah, it's funny. Lisa's like, I don't know some of my best friends' names. Um, it is what it is. But I think that particularly with Smokeahanis, because there are fewer native skaters than probably any group. And so for her, it was important to be that role model, but it was also kind of stressful because being the only one of a thing, that's a lot of responsibility. And so I think for her, that was the challenge. I will say that since this film was made, there has grown to be a new movement within Derby. It's called the borderless teams. And we've got Indigenous Rising, Black Diaspora, Fuego Latino, Roller Derby. And essentially, it's BIPOC teams made up of players from all over the United States who are coming together and creating more visibility that, we play Derby too. Derby tends to be historically has been a very white sport. And so this is a transition that Derby needs. And it's fascinating to watch. And so she was kind of at the forefront of that. And when the protests around the Dakota Access Pipeline were going on in North Dakota, she had painted on her legs "No Dapple," and so like she was doing political things while also skating,
Yeah.
which is cool and also stressful. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to see. You can see that the sport means so much to them, but it doesn't fully define them, who they are, and their lives play out on screen. Uh,
Mhm.
Forgive me if this is a personal question, but I was wondering what the your experience with the mean taught you about yourself.
Um, I would probably say that it taught me to take up space. It's that piece of it. I would say that I have a much different relationship with my physicality than I did prior to this film. I've often talked about myself as being, uh, basically I'm just a head. I walk around and everything is happening up here, and my body is just the vehicle to get there.
Mm.
And I think that working with Minnesota Mean, it's been like, how important is your physical body? How important is it to really just, exercise it, and not, in order to be thin or be buff, but it is a part of you, and it is not this means to get somewhere. It is you. And so I think that for me, that embodiment piece has come from this project.
That's awesome. I have to ask too, did they convince you to lace up? Did they-
No.
Not once, not in a practice or a scrimmage, just
No, they saw the look on my face and they were like, you stay on the side. They did give me a name when the film premiered. I got a t-shirt that says Dawn of the Dead. So for whatever that's worth, I've got a name now, which I was, flattered by. But no, conveniently, they were like, if you don't want to be on the track, you should not be on the track. That's a sign.
and I
So
will respect on that name because that is an awesome name.
thank you. Thank you.
That is great.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, I honestly, I like, this is a sport that I admit I do not know much about, but
Mhm,
watching it play out, you could see how much it mattered to the players. It really is
mhm.
remarkable. Just in your mind, as we start to wrap up, what do you hope people take away from the film?
Um, there's a lot of things I hope people take from the film. I would love at the end of the day for more people to watch Derby, to play Derby. I think that that would be amazing. And when we've had screenings, people have been like, how do I do this? And usually there's been a local team there and I'm like, you talk to those guys. And, so it's been really cool that way. And we don't have that when it's on the streaming platforms. So I hope people, Google their local teams and find them and support them. I'm telling you, watching Derby is so fun. It's a wonderful evening. I actually went with a 94-year-old former figure skater, and he had a great time watching roller derby. So I hope there's that on a universal, level. I think that it's a film about decisions too, about when to pay attention to yourself, when to nurture yourself, and when to lean on your community. And so I hope that it has that kind of impact where people can think about, what are their roles and responsibilities to their community? And when is it okay to say, you know what, I need help? And when is it okay to be the jammer and, just go out there and do it? So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that can be taken from this film, but it's very just it's interesting because I've had audiences respond to it, and there's been an even number of people who've connected to various characters. I thought for sure that it'd be one character that rose to the top that people were like in love with. And it really has been based on the audience members' personal experience, who they relate to, which is kind of cool.
I completely understand that. Just to be, completely candid, Shiver Me Kimbers' journey, we can relate to that in this home. So
Yes.
hearing that story, I'm like, that's something that isn't talked about very much. And to hear that and to hear her openness, I thought, wow,
Mhm.
that's really remarkable. And yes, like you connect, everybody would connect with it based on their own journey. You could see, and
Right.
again, because they're real people,
Mhm.
they're using names in the game, but we see who they really are. I think it's a wonderful film.
Well, thank you. Oh, and Kimber's, God, God bless that woman. She's just amazing. And her willingness to share what she shared with us, I didn't see coming. When we did that conversation, she hadn't told the team yet about her story, and and she was able to just be there in her emotions. As an interviewer, often if somebody starts crying or something, they'll start apologizing for themselves and be like, oh, I'm sorry, can we just take a break? I just need a break. And I'll be like, yeah, no, totally, pull yourself together. uh, and Kimber's didn't do that. Kimber's
Yeah.
was like in her emotion, and she, I think in that moment, felt it was important that people understood what she felt, and that it was okay, and had power in that. And that was one of the cooler things I've experienced as a filmmaker.
I appreciated that. And
Hmm.
like you said, you felt like she was present, like this is something that needed to be shared, and it did.
Yeah.
And honestly, Dawn, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank
The
you.
film is lovely, and I wish you the best.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.